About a year ago, I did a video of my top 5 favorite tanks in the fish tank barn. I decided to revisit that video with a clean slate and choose my 5 favorite tanks for this year. So let's jump into the barn and see what my top 5 favorite tanks are for 2022. So let's start with a tank that's been one of my favorites for quite a long time, and that is my 125-gallon African Cichlid tank. This tank is primarily home to my purple ACI and yellow labs, which have been some of the longest running fish in the fish room since I initially bought this group in March of 2017. This tank is filtered with a Seachem Title 110 and a sponge filter. I do have some Vallisneria in this tank, which has done quite well, despite the reputation of these Mbuna not being plant safe. Substrate for this tank is some sandblasting sand that I got from Menards, and the background is made with some closed cell foam and pond spray foam. If you want to learn more about how I made the background, check out the video above. I really enjoy the movement in this tank, where these fish are constantly moving and constantly interacting, especially at feeding time, where these fish can actually get pretty wild. This tank will probably be one of my favorites for quite a long time. Another favorite sits right across from the African Cichlid tank, which is my 245-gallon South American tank, which is home to a pretty wide variety of species. There are 2 species of Geophagus, the Geophagus altifrons and the Geophagus weinmilleri. Also in this tank are 3 Thoricles maculopinus, which is a relative of the firemouth cichlid. You also find a pair of wild-caught severums from the Rio Nene that I've had since 2018. Over the past year, I did add some schooling fish, the scissor-tail rasboras. These have turned out to be great because they're big enough and fast enough to not be bothered by the other larger fish. This tank is aquascaped with driftwood and has the same type of DIY background that you saw in the African Cichlid tank, just with a different design. These fish are much more relaxed, but there's definitely a hierarchy in this tank with some interesting interactions among all of the cichlids. The beauty of the fish and the behavior of the fish in this tank are really what make this tank set apart and make it one of my favorites here in the fish barn. This next tank is a tank that I talk about quite frequently in my videos, and that's my 55-gallon Lake Tanganyikan tank. This tank is home to a large breeding group of Cyprochromis leptosoma blue flash and a couple of Xenotilapia bathyphyllus. Over the summer, I've had quite a bit of success breeding the Cyprochromis and have produced several groups of fry. This setup is pretty basic, with a black background, some basic rock work, and some sponge filters for filtration. I also use hornwort as a floating plant since it provides plenty of hiding spaces and also helps with filtration. I really enjoy the movement of the Cyprochromis with their beautiful blue sheens. This is a tank I'll often sit and gaze at for quite a long time, just watching the fish interact with one another and admiring their beauty. So let's take a look at another tank, this 75-gallon mixed community tank. The main fish in here is the Gidead species, the Anthenobius toweri, or blue-tailed Gidead. There are also some muck guppies, black mollies, Variatus platies, and some white cloud mountain minnows. Needless to say, this fish has turned into kind of a catch-all tank. This tank is heavily planted with Java moss with a large crypt in the middle. Underneath all of the Java moss, there is some dragonstone that was part of the original aquascape that I made for this tank. What I really enjoy about this tank is that it's both beautiful with all the Java moss and cool-looking fish, and is also functional with producing fry. So I kind of have the best of both worlds. Have a beautiful tank that also produces a lot of fish. This last tank was a tough decision, but I decided on another Lake Tanganyikan tank, this 40-gallon breeder that's home to my Neolamprologus similis. This tank is probably one of the most basic in the fish room, with just some rock work, some shells for the Neolamprologus to hide in, and a sand substrate. I do filter this tank with a sponge filter, which seems to do quite a good job. What really makes this tank stand out for me is the fish and their behavior. I really enjoy watching these fish interact with one another, rearranging their substrate and moving their shells around. This tank is just a lot of fun, and it's never the same from day to day. So if you've never kept shell dwellers before, I would highly recommend giving it a try. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at my top 5 favorite tanks here in the fish tank barn. I really do want to say that I enjoy all the tanks in the fish barn and the various purposes they suit, whether it be a display tank or for breeding fish. I'm curious, if you think there's another tank that deserves to be in the top 5, go ahead and let me know in the comment section. I'm curious what you guys think. So with that being said, stay safe, stay fishy, and I'll catch you on the next video.